Hey guys, I feel very moved to make this video. I have to use two different sources because I tried to open this link, which is Super Soldier Forum, and there was a message from Max Spiers on it that I had kept open, and I went to look on it on this computer, and his message, which is called the message from Max Spiers, is gone. Thank God I saved it on here, so I'm going to read it before it disappears forever. And I'm pretty upset about the fact that it's not on there anymore. So I hope when I put the numbers in exactly the same, and they didn't. It says this is not available. So something happened to it. So I'm going to quickly read it to you right now. So this is what it says. It starts out with somebody else talking, I think, and then he responds. So it goes like this. Quote, "It's not just the children in the juvenile detention programs, foster homes, and adoption centers of the world who are being exploited in this ring. It is also the children of the wealthy and privileged, of the Illuminati/Jesuits, whose fates are being decided in orchestrated, deeply hidden, and horrific fashions. This also corroborates child abuse detailed to me and intuited by myself, with Max Spiers telling me about his time at school with his roommate Orlando Bloom while they were students." And the name Orlando is very important for a lot of different reasons. Roommates and friends at the Canterbury Cathedral School in England in the 80s and 90s. Orlando is Max's godfather. And I don't know if any of this is true or not, but I think the part that Max says is true. Maybe this is true. Orlando is Max's godfather, believe it or not, and after Max was baptized as a young teen by the Bishop of Canterbury himself, there was an Illuminati ritual in the basement of the cathedral, pitting both boys against one another in a no-rules fight. Max later comes back and negates that comment, but this is what this person says, who I am not even sure who wrote all of this. But anyways, carrying on, because it's pretty interesting. Even if there's some truth in it, it's still worth reading and studying and thinking about. So this is the first part I'm reading that may or may not be totally true, that Max responds to and clarifies. So what I'm reading now is not necessarily the truth, but it's one person's view of his life. So she says they put the boys against one another in a no-rules fight. After the fight, their fates were determined by who won and who lost. Max lost, which is not necessarily true. And we all know what happened to Orlando. He became a big movie star. Neither boy remembered anything after this happened, but their friendship drastically changed overnight, and Orlando's behavior suddenly changed, as did Max's. Max quickly fell into drug addiction and alcoholism, and Orlando's career bloomed. Both men also studied drama at the same school in London before Max left for addiction issues, and both men also auditioned for the same role. Orlando eventually won for Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings. Interesting that she thinks that Max was trying to be an actor. I mean, maybe they wanted him to maybe play the role. I don't know. But, okay. Both are victims of the most severe form of Illuminati mind control known. Max has DID, capital DID, dissociative, so I don't know what that stands for. Look it up, DID, I'm going to look it up later. Something disorder, probably. And look at Orlando's filmography. There are several key Jesuit Knights Templar orchestrated themes in it. So Orlando is always doing these movies about the Jesuits, the Knights, and the Templars, including a film in which he literally plays a Knights Templar in the Crusades. There are hidden Knights Templar references in another hit film franchise Bloom was in as well, Pirates of the Caribbean. So that ends the quote. Now it starts, "Now I will respond to Anya Briggs' significantly inaccurate statements." So I think this is where Max starts to speak. And I was listening to one of Max's videos that was put on by Miles on his Bases channel. And he addresses Anya Briggs and her comments and her things that she had said over the last couple of years, and he wanted to respond to them because he didn't agree with everything that she said. And so here's what he says. It's very unclearly written, but he says, now I, quote, now I will respond to Anya Briggs's significantly inaccurate statements, ... I didn't want to involve my friend Mr. Bloom in any of this, as it's not my responsibility to do so, and I'm very sensitive to MK Ultra victims and the horrendous acts that were perpetrated upon them. But as Miss Briggs has once again spewed specific inaccuracies, I feel it extremely important that I address this issue. I actually hear his voice because I was just listening to him all night. And then he goes on. This is Max talking. Yes, Orlando is my godfather, and yes, he stood by me when I was baptized and stood by my side at 13 years old with the Archbishop of Canterbury when I was confirmed into the Church of England, which of course is King Henry VIII's creation, the Church of England, I think. There are, yes, multiple chambers below the cathedral in Canterbury, and we were taken below there after the ceremony. But, ... there was no fight between us. Very important information was taken from my cellular memory, meaning Max's, and placed into Orlando's consciousness so that when the films were made that he starred in, he would be able to have a complete grasp of what happened. It's interesting that they would take Max's consciousness and put it into Orlando as if Orlando was playing the parts that Max actually lived. And this is pretty interesting. When the movie, Carey continues, quote, when the movies Troy and Kingdom of Heaven and Pirates of the Caribbean were made, he was then able to access my memories as these movies were actually about me. So he's claiming that he lived these actual lives, which I think is possible. I believe in that kind of thing. So he carries on. The characters he played were fractured parts of real-life happenings of my parallel lives. The characters he played were fractured parts of real-life happenings of my parallel lives. This was planned at birth, and they knew that there had to be a hidden, in parentheses, myself, and a publicly seen, in parentheses, Orlando, person to maintain the subconscious predictive programming for the general public, because he's always saying that the movies are all programmed, pre-programmed. The movies are the programs they want us to believe, and they want us to, it's all encoded. Every time you go to the movies, you're being programmed. It's just good to know that. Good to go into a movie with the knowledge that that movie is trying to program you. So just if you're aware of it, maybe you won't get programmed. You'll just be aware of the programming. So I think that's pretty friggin' interesting. This was planned at birth. And they knew that there had to be a hidden myself and a publicly seen Orlando person to maintain the subconscious predictive programming for the general public, because our subconscious has been hacked by the Draco reptilians and the Orion factor, the queens, who created the Dracos to harass us, just like the flying monkeys of the Wicked Witch of the West. When he said that last night, I heard that he said that the Dracos are created beings. They were created specifically to harass humans on this planet. So I knew it. I knew I was right about that. Anyways, he carries on. An anagram of my name, Max Spiers, is, in quotes, Paris, sex, M, end quote. The M is representative for 13, which is a very important number in the Kabbalah, and means multiple lifetimes in loop. And he said that in that recent video with Miles, that the number 13 means you get reborn again and come back and you come back and you come back over and over and over again. 3 + 1 is 4. I'm not sure about that, what that means. But anyways, carrying on. Mr. Bloom played Prince Paris in Troy. And he played that role because they were able to transfer my memories of that lifetime into his cells and super conscious. So he's basically saying that he is Paris. That Max is saying that he was Paris in that past life. You know, Helen of Troy. So he was the one who stole the beautiful princess, the beautiful Helen the face that caused 1,000 ships, the War of 1,000 Ships or something. I wonder who that was. Was it Sarah or someone else? Who was Helen? Who's Helen? The Nasty ritual that is used to do this, which is taking his memories from Max and putting them into Mr. Bloom, is something that I don't want to talk about now. Obviously, it was horrible. So it wasn't that they were put to fight. It was that they were subjected to this horrible ritual where they stole Max's memories from his cells, because your cells have all your memories of all your past lives. They stole his memories and put him into Orlando Bloom. Max got so screwed. But he's the best, you know, he's my favorite. Obviously. Now, he continues, ... The Lord of the Rings is also very important to this story, as Legolas is the character that he played, and that is a 3,000-year-old elvish warrior prince. Once again, the same ritual was used, and after so many times of stealing and using my memories, and also brutally traumatizing Orlando, the project was finished as far as memory transfer was done. Dang it. Did anybody else read this? God. Damn. He continues, we were both experimented on from birth to see if these horrific experiments would work without either killing us or turning our minds to mush. It's amazing he was as strong as he is. He still exists. We both survived, but many, many thousands of boys ended up dead or permanently consigned to psych wards when these experiments were done to those poor young boys. This is just horrible. They were looking for the strongest mind-body combo to see how far they could push the human psyche. They are and have been very aware of who I am and who Orlando is long before we arrived in this body temple that we are using now. John Scarlett, one of MI6's finest, in parentheses, most disgusting, headed this particular experiment and is as brutally sick in his proceedings as anything Joseph Mengele has done or is currently doing. Because Joseph Mengele apparently is still alive because they learned life extension and perpetual youth, which is living on human hormones triggered by trauma and then sucked out of our brains and our organs and our, it's horrible. God, after the Pirates of the Caribbean movies were finished, unfortunately for my dear friend, he was reprogrammed sadistically as his alters were bleeding through. They referred to him then as a new man, and he puts that in bold letters, a new man in quotes. He was then paired up with Miranda Kerr, Kirr, in parentheses, MK, to make sure that he kept in line as he was beginning to remember what had gone on for so many years. She was also used as a breeding partner. Many of the masters, in parentheses, teachers, at the private boarding school we went to, I won't mention the name, he says in parentheses, were involved on a need-to-know basis. Some in particular reinforced the programming to both of us with the use of violence and multiple forms of sexual trauma. This poor guy. He's so strong and brave. I don't care what any of you say. Don't diss this man in front of me, please. But you are allowed to love him. He deserves it. A lot of people are jealous of him, obviously. That's why they... Poor guy. Anyways, he signed up for it because he knew he was strong enough to handle it. But he sure paid his dues. He continues, one memory I have in particular is that one day after school, we were both pulled aside and taken to the headmaster's office, which was a dark and ominous place with smells that I remember to this day, as I have a photographic memory, and also have the ability to bring myself back to any place from the past and feel and smell it. A bar of soap was pulled from a drawer that was I don't know what he meant by that. That was a strange color and smell, and we were both told to, in unison, take a bite from it. A bar of soap. They were told to take a bite from this bar of soap. The headmaster did this under the guise of saying that we needed to clean our filthy mouths out for bad language. But neither of us had done or said anything wrong. That's because everybody gets accused of something they didn't do. I was just accused of something I didn't do, and it really, really upset me. What they do is they accuse you of something until you start believing it. It's a trick. Everything's a trick. Then he says, I feel now that the bar of soap incident, was in fact a screen memory and something else happened, but I am unable to recall it. There is a sort of firewall block when I go there to try and see what really happened. It was some form of reinforcing the memory transfer, I feel. As Orlando has now been totally reprogrammed, it is very hard for me to access the info and data that he has inside of his head and cellular memory to find out what was actually going on there. I wonder why they went to all this trouble. I mean, he's an actor. Couldn't he just act the part? You know? Well, he's obviously more than an actor. There is still a plan involving Orlando and I for something upcoming, but again, because of the advanced memory blocks that have been used on both of us, I don't know what it is exactly. ... Although I have a pretty good idea. Since this particular ceremony happened when we were both 13, in parentheses, we had to be that age because 13 is the number of reincarnation on a very basic level, end parentheses. There have been many, many parallels in our lives. My fiancée, Sarah Adams, knows a great deal about this. It's interesting, they were engaged when he wrote this, so this validates that this is him. And it made me think about the fact that they were engaged to be married. And I wondered how he proposed, or did she propose? How did they get engaged? And then what happened, you know? I mean, we could be seeing pictures of them all over the internet getting married in a big wedding, and her in her big wedding, you know, dress, and him being Prince Charming, and them dancing at their wedding. That could have been another storyline that they got married here, like the same way as you know, Arthur and Guinevere, not Lancelot, but, you know, King Arthur and Guinevere. He also says that he's King Arthur. It's possible. He has that kind of soul where you admire him and respect him, I feel. And then he says, on a final note, ... Ricky Gervais' hugely successful television show, The Office, plays a role in this also. First of all, Gervais is a French name, and Ricky, in parentheses, sorry Ricky, is in fact not English. He is deeply French, and he has Merovingian blood running through his veins, as do I, as does Orlando. Merovingian, I just wonder if that's the Mary Magdalene bloodline. What is that bloodline? You know, is that the tribe of Dan that goes back to Atlantis and the Atlantean magicians? Because he talked about that in that video. The tribe of Dan, starting with the Atlantean magicians and then traveling on through Iraq and France and southern France, and then up through, and he, of course, Miles interrupted him, and I didn't get to find out the rest of where the tribe of Dan. Damn it. Miles always interrupts. It's so frustrating. Um, so he continues, around the time of Thomas A. Becket's murder in Canterbury Cathedral in about 1170, the year 1170, there was a priest there known as Gervase of Canterbury. There is info online about a very strange thing that he saw when he looked at the moon. He says he saw it burst and blood started pouring from it. It is written that this happened multiple times. That's interesting, in the year 1170. And nothing has ever been seen like it before or since. 1170. Moon bursts and blood pours out. I will post the info below. Ricky had decided to name one of his main characters in The Office Tim Canterbury. The actor's name who played Tim Canterbury is Martin Freeman from the very, very famous 13 elite families, the Freeman family. Huh. Well, 10 years later, with Ricky's very powerful pull in Hollywood business, they cast Martin Freeman, Tim Canterbury, as Bilbo Baggins in the Hobbit franchise of movies. The front cover of the first movie, The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey, in quotes, has an extremely symbolic front cover. It has Bilbo Canterbury, in parentheses, about to walk through what appears to be a circular portal vortex point, which represents the entrance and exit point to the inner earth below the cathedral in Canterbury. Wow, so there's an entrance below the cathedral in Canterbury. Dang it, that's amazing. As my memories are now becoming clearer, as the disease of addiction that was induced into me is in remission. He was forced to be an addict, you people who call him a drug addict. Screw you people, because he was forced to be an addict, like a lot of us are. So this bullshit about him being a drug addict has got to stop. He was forced into that, and he did everything he could to stop it, and he is one strong guy and should be honored in every possible way. You know, even if he embraced and even if he chose to become this vampire so that he could help fix that, that is one hell of a thing to do for people. That's a sacrifice. That's the Jesus kind of level of sacrifice. That we're convinced that we have to be victims and sacrificial lambs to please that big reptile god that we've been worshiping, Abraham. Or Abraham's God, the Old Testament God, that big old reptile who was made by the Orion Queens to keep tabs on little water world Earth, to provide these queens with everlasting life from the incredible hormones coming from terrified little human children. Sick bitches. Anyways, carrying on. As my memories are now becoming clearer, as the disease of addiction that was induced into me is in remission, and he definitely seemed cleaned up by the time, right before, a couple of years before he died. With the help of a wonderful support group, I can now slowly recall what the hell went on. That's what he said. Then he continues. My fear with this is that as I let go and surrender to the entity of addiction, it loses its power, and I integrate my fractured self. This is the controller's worst nightmare. With full recall, I become the most dangerous man to them. So he's worried that, he says, as I let go and surrender to the entity of addiction, it loses its power, and I integrate my fractured self. This is the controller's worst nightmare. With full recall, I become the most dangerous man to them. And that's what he became, and that's why they killed him. He was the most dangerous man to them because he could recall everything. Max, come back. I have their secrets contained in my DNA strands, DNA, anagram for Dan, and I can undo all that has been done. The more I awaken, the more they seem to send people into my life who are used, in parentheses, some knowingly, / some others deeply programmed and have no clue, end parentheses, to keep me repressed and asleep, whether with drugs or with continued gratuitous trauma. This stops now. We have already won. It is now a waiting game to see what their next move is. They have become sloppy and predictable, almost like how a crocodile always moves his head in the same direction when a piece of meat is dangled in front of his face. Here is a screenshot of the front of The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey. The title itself is uncoded for those who need to know. Here is also the info on Gervais of Canterbury talking about the extremely bizarre occurrence with the moon, in parentheses, moon meaning the feminine subconscious. I want to click on that, but I don't want to lose this page. 5 monks from Canterbury reported to the Abbey's chronicler, Gervais, that shortly after sunset on June 18th, 1178, the year 1178, and then in parentheses, 25th of June on the proleptic Gregorian calendar, end of parentheses, proleptic, Proleptic, Gregorian calendar. They saw, in quotes, the upper horn of the moon split in two. Furthermore, Gervais writes, in quotes, excuse me, from the midpoint of the division, a flaming torch sprang up, spewing out over a considerable distance fire, hot coals, and sparks. Meanwhile, the body of the moon, which was below, writhed as if it were in anxiety, and to put it into the words of those who reported it to me, saw it with their own eyes, the moon throbbed like a wounded snake. Afterwards, it resumed its proper state. This phenomenon was repeated a dozen times or more, the flame assuming various twisting shapes at random, then returning to normal. Then, after these transformations, the moon, from horn to horn, that is, along its whole length, took on blackish appearance. In 1976, the geologist Jack B. Hartung, Hartung, proposed that this described the formation of the crater Giordano Bruno. And then there's 2 links below there that are, one of them is www.fastlanemag.com and www.fastlanemag. And then it says take action. And then below that, somebody says, great memory, Max. Congrats on that. Hard come by, I know. I wish you the best in everything, and that's by no fear. Somebody else wrote, thank you, Nate. I don't know what the no fear means. Thank you, Nate. Oh, he wrote back, thank you, Nate, and a smiley face. He's so cute. So, this is on supersoldier.ubb4um.com/topic/message-from-Max-Spiers. And I tried to put it in another tab, and it said this does not exist. So that's why I want to share it with you in case they took it away. I want you to be able to read this. And the other thing, this Hobbit thing, is www.fastlane.mag.com/WP-Hobbit-un-unexpected-journey.jpg. JPG. So I don't know if you can still find that. I'm going to figure out how to find these things without disrupting this page, which I'm going to probably screenshot because I don't want to lose this, and I think they took it down. So This is pretty important, I feel. Anyways, you can tell me what you think of it. I just think it's good to hear these things. I've been learning a lot by listening to Max's, more, his videos again and again, over and over. And I learned some new things that I was really wondering about, that he answered in some of those videos that he did with Miles. I was listening to the one he did on the music industry, and then there's this other. Just watch everything he's done with Miles and everything he's done with everybody else, because he answers a lot of questions. First of all, one of the keys is the Ankh, the Egyptian Ankh, which I think is the human body is a symbol of the Ankh, and but that's like made of gold. That's one of the keys, and something with the reptilian. I think we have to integrate our reptilianness somehow. I had a super interesting day yesterday that I want to talk about. I'll make that in a different video, but there were these. I'm going to take notes the next time I go through his videos, because you know how you space out. I space out sometimes and just miss a section, so I have to like listen to it again. And I'm going to take notes and, share my notes, putting together all of those concepts my way to share them that way. I really appreciate all you guys who are writing me stuff. Marcus, thank you. It's good to hear these other things, and thank you for all those links. And I have to tell you, yesterday I saw fours everywhere, four groups of fours, and I kept thinking about you. And 4 is a powerful number for me as well. And so it was just a day full of symbols, truthfully. I want to talk about all those symbols, but I'm going to do that in a different video. So I just want to share this with you. Anya Briggs says all this stuff about Max. And, I feel like Max had a lot of class and a lot of gentlemanly qualities, very well raised. And if he'd been a king and a queen and all, or not a queen, if he'd been a king, I don't know if he's ever been a female. Probably not, but some people are never incarnate as a female. I think it's very important to incarnate as a female and give birth, on this planet. I just feel like you learn a lot about the female, which is really important to know. So, okay, guys, well, that's what I wanted to read to you. If you're able to find this Super Soldier Forum, and then find it's called A Message from Max Spiers. It was dated 7/28/14, which is after he died. Wait a minute. I thought he died July 16th. Oh, sorry. He died he didn't die, but this was July 28th, 2014, when he was still alive. 6:15 p.m. And then there's a day in the life of Sarah Adams on here. It says, alien shot down California missile. Is any of this correct? That's on 8/29/2016. That's recently. Then there was 4 Warning Dreams, Dream of Max Spiers, that was on August 26th. And Simplifying the Matrix and Your Potential to Grow. That's another post, 8/16/16. So there's different things on here. I'm obsessed with Max's info because I feel like he was really honest. I just believe him. And I feel like I am just incredibly frustrated when I listen to these interviews with him and Miles, because Miles really just needs to do all the talking and he can't help himself. I mean, I don't mean to criticize the precious Irish, because I have Irish blood as well. We all need Irish blood, but it's an annoying quality. And he can't help it. I was married to somebody like that. They don't mean badly, but I hate to say it, but I sometimes wonder if Miles hasn't been taken over by a big old gray alien. And that's why he kept asking that kid Alex, what size was his hands, when Alex was talking about that gray alien that had him in the jump seat that was part of the Nazi party. I thought it was so weird that Miles was so obsessed with the details about that gray alien. And it was like, is it like which gray alien are you working with? Like what size are his hands might mean who it was, as if he was trying to figure it out. It just seemed weird. And then when Max first, quote unquote, allegedly passed away, Miles was like, oh, this was clearly a murder. We have to investigate this. And then later he just kept acting like, oh, well, Max is gone and there's nothing we can do. And I just thought, this doesn't sound like Miles. Sometimes I just think, and then Miles dissed me, attacked me on something I said because I was begging him to stop interrupting his interviewees, like many people were on his page. And he ends up writing some really harsh thing to me. And for some reason, I couldn't respond. And if I had been, I probably would have gotten into a big argument with him, but I couldn't respond. So I was really annoyed by that. But in a way, I thought, well, it protected me from getting into it with him, because now if anybody reads all my comments, I am so supportive of this kid and so supportive of Miles in general. But I'm just really pissed off that Miles does that when Alex comes along. I felt like Max, that was torture with Max, but Max handled it as best as he could, given how polite he actually is. And when Miles starts interrupting him, Max just, But when Alex was interrupted, Alex is different. Alex was, forced to be there, asked to be there, had a gun to his head to be there, was not used to doing that, was not used to the situation, was not used to haters, had a totally different life than Max, and was really his own form of Superman. I'm not going to call him a super soldier, even though that's kind of what he is, because I think of him more of a Superman, which is different. But he didn't have, so to attack that boy, to treat him that way, because I truly felt, I really believed, and I'm going to talk about this more later, but I really believed that Alex was a message for me, because I was starting to go into a very deep depression. Without Max, with him being gone, I thought, oh my God, we've lost. And I think that I have a lot of energy. So if I'm up, it brings it up. If I go down, it brings it down, because I have so much energy. And we are all powerful, And I felt like I was about to go really down. And Max was like, before maybe me and others who are like me and understand that vibration, his vibrations and his goal, we were the ones that message was for. Definitely, I felt it was for me. And I literally cried when he described, when Alex, which is not his real name, described when the baby was presented and he killed the baby and then said, we're free. When he said, the way he said all of that was so shocking. I literally went like, and I think I was on my stationary bike at home, and I was watching this grippingly, so frustrated out of my friggin' mind, because Miles would not stop interrupting him and redirecting him and asking stupid questions, and everybody was annoyed by that, not just me. But when this boy finally says, I call him a boy, he's 26, but he just seems so young. When he said that he killed this baby, and that I went, because it wasn't what I was expecting him to say. I was like, the shock of it on every level, as a mother, as the killing a child, just killing this reptilian. And then he said this was the last reptile, the last royal line. This reptile baby was the last royal line. And believe me, reptiles don't care about their babies. So it's not like anybody cried over that baby. They just want tough, strong Spartan. They don't care about loving, sweet, or any of that. So killing a reptile baby is not causing the mother agony the way it kills a human mother's baby. We're totally different. Nothing alike. So you can't cry for the reptilians when their babies were hurt, because they don't even care. And you should be crying for the human mothers whose babies were hurt, because we do care. Humans do care. So I was like, and then when he said, we're free, it was like, it was like it all came together, because this message was for me. I just fell down and sobbed uncontrollably, because I believed that, they had done this job. The reptilians are only one of our problems. The AI is another problem. But that message that kid said, struggled to say, despite Miles's interruptions and annoying, with all due respect, Miles' personality, at times, most of the time, lovable as you can be, and as much as I admire all your work, I was out of my freaking mind listening to interrupt this kid, because I felt like this kid was for me. And I was listening, and I said, please let me know if this is from Max. Please let me know. I need a sign that this is true, and that it's from Max, and that I can believe in this. And I asked that question, and as I asked that question, and Alex was finishing speaking, saying we're free, the first word out of Miles's mouth was Max. And that was my sign that this was from Max. And Alex said it was from Max. That it was from not just Max, but that Max was a part of it. And so to me, when Miles said Max, right after this boy finished this incredible, dramatic, and overwhelming story about how he got his revenge, basically, which he deserved to have because he was brutally tortured by the reptilians. Brutally. And yes, I do believe he survived with his head and his torso without his limbs and his legs, because you can live without arms and legs. You can't live without a head, but you can live with a head and a body. You can live without arms and legs. They do it all the time. Paraplegics, they happen. So could he be with his face ripped off and his arms taken off and hung on a stick and survive? Yes, I believe that he could, because if you have super Jesus Nazi powers, which is what he called them, you know, there must be a good part of Nazis somewhere in there. It's not all bad. One other thing I just wanted to say about, because Max said this, that the Aldebarans and the Dracos have been at war for a really long time. Now, Aldebaran is considered negative by Simon Parkes, and Casbolt says he's from Aldebaran. But I don't know. Are they both bad? Maybe they're both bad fighting over this planet, so they're both bad? I don't know. But I've been trying to figure out this Aldebaran thing. And then Sarah Adams posted us an Aldebaran image that looked very Egyptian. And I said, what's this? And she said, it's Aldebaran. And I was like, and it was Egyptian. I thought, is that Aldebaran? Did the Aldebaran, where did the Dracos come from? Who is the Aldebaran? What is Aldebaran? Who is in charge of Aldebaran? Supposedly there's a queen, and maybe a negative feminine queen in charge of Aldebaran, who masterminded these Dracos to torture the planet so that we are always in fear, so that they can suck our fear-based, fearful blood, because the fear hormones are really, really powerful and make them young. I don't know. Something to consider. Anyways, I do want to try to stay positive. I don't want to get super depressed about how horrible everything is and what's coming. So the way to stay positive is to do what Marcus also suggests, which is go deep within inside yourself and just try to find a place of peace, and then focus on that place of peace and grow it as big as you can, and include the planet in it, and go into the middle of the planet and spread it out all around the planet as far and big as you can. And to me, that is the simplest, easiest, free way most painless way of taking your energy in your human body and making the most of the situation for the positive outcome for yourself, as well as the people that you love. So that's my idea on what to do about this horrible problem that we have with these evil queens and their flying green monkeys trying to torture us and bring back water, blood, and gold to their planet. Water, human blood, human body parts, organs, and it's the glands that produce it's the pituitary gland, the thymus, the hypothalamus, pineal. Those are the glands that produce the hormones, are what they're really after, and they really want it from the Mary Magdalene bloodline, because she has the magic powers. So, and maybe that's the tribe of Dan? I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out this tribe of Dan thing. But anyways, guys, I'm going to do another video on the tribe of Dan. I have another thing to read about the tribe of Dan to help in my quest for knowledge on this complicated, intriguing story. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you can find that message from Max, I hope you can. If you can't, at least you heard it here. So, love ya. Big kiss, guys. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.